What's good, guys? It's your boy Maccert, back for another video. It's been a while. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I've just been busy the start of the year and haven't been able to post as much stuff as I'd like to. But today we're going to learn how to create this robotic arm in Cinema 4D. So to get this to work, I had to, do a variety of tests. It took me a while to actually kind of figure out if this effect would even work because it requires a lot of 3D environments and a lot of tracking. So I wasn't sure how well it would play out. So for that reason, I'm going to give this effect a 7 out of 10 Adobe crashes. Step 1, shoot your footage. Now, if you know anything about VFX work, you know the more time that you put into pre-production, the easier it will be later on. Now, this doesn't always work out. If you're on a budget, literally, it's just fact, you're gonna have to fix stuff in post. But generally, if you can prepare better, it helps you out a lot. So I knew I wanted to key myself out and put myself in a 3D environment. So the best way I thought about doing this was actually just using a green screen. If you're curious about some green screen tips and maybe some more information about how you should go about setting up a green screen, make sure you check out my video. Plus there's heaps of videos online so you can figure that out. Originally for the wide shot, I actually used a blue screen, which is a dumb idea because I'm using a blue light. It's just really painful. Make sure you guys, use respectful colors and a green or a blue screen that reflects what you're actually shooting. So I knew from my previous test that I need some really big tracking markers to make it easier for Cinema 4D to track. I've had previous tests where I've just used dots that did not work at all. So my solution was to use some styrofoam balls that I could stick onto some skewers, and I literally just taped it to my wrist. Like, you can't get more DIY than that. But it worked, so, It's also key to mention that because those tracking points are always outside of my arm, that meant I could do like a little sleeve reveal, which I really wanted to do. Otherwise, it just would have been a nightmare trying to find enough data to actually track my arm with the sleeve covering it. So also make sure to get a clean plate. I don't think you'll be using it if you're going to put your character in a CG environment, but if you have a locked off camera, then just grab one in case. Step 2, jump into Cinema 4D. For the actual robotic arm, I was lazy and I didn't want to even try modeling an arm. So I just went on to Turbo Squid and found the cheapest, coolest looking robot arm I could find. I actually can't find the original one that I used on there. I don't know why, but there's heaps of other varieties that are just a couple bucks. And if you feel creative, you can model your own. I believe in you. For actually texturing the 3D object, I just used a bunch of textures from Polygon, which is a fantabulous website. Fabulous website, which I'd recommend you guys go check out. I'm a huge fan of what they offer. It's really affordable and you get a whole bunch of assets that you can use. Step 3, we're about to jump into Cinema 4D. Since we've already got the footage and we've already got our 3D asset, that makes life a lot easier. So the first step is to go into the Motion Tracker tab and click Motion Tracker, obviously. In the Motion Tracker section, find footage and select your base footage to be tracked. Now, since we're only tracking the manual tracks, we can, skip the whole camera calibration junk stuff and just go into tracking points in the manual tracking tab. Control click to make a track point and then select the manual track button. Now we can scrub through our footage and see how well the software has actually worked. If the track points somehow are not aligned, which is very likely, you can simply just realign them by moving them to the correct position and just continuing on. Just for the lulz, I also tracked some of the points on my arm just to give it a bit more information. They're only there for a brief second, but it gives the software a bit more information. From there, we can select our newly created track points and we can go to Motion Tracker in the tab section again and click Object Tracker this time. In our Project Tracker, select the Trackers tab and select Align Selected. Click the Reconstruction tab and press Run 3D Solver for Object. Now this should have created a camera and some 3D points that we can now use to line up our robotic arm. The only advice I can give for actually aligning the robot arm is just to, continually edit and try as best you can. There's probably like a better way of doing it, but I'm just really lazy. And this is the only way that I've kind of found right now that works. And after a lot of adjustments, you now have a robotic arm that sticks to your arm in 3D space, which is pretty cool. Nice work. From there, we can just create some octane lights and place them in spots that the lights would have been on set. Or in our case, since we're creating a 3D environment, we can try and light them to our pleasing and just place them in places that we think the light would be coming from. As an example, I just used 2 lights, one as a backlight and one as just a normal front light. Once we have tracked our footage, placed in a awesome robotic arm and, you know, lit our subject, we can now get into rendering. I'm going to link a video in the description that goes into a lot of detail about render settings and what's best for your computer. So make sure you guys go watch that. I'm just doing what's best for my computer. Just make sure it's an alpha matte and you have it as an alpha layer. That's all the advice I can really give. Step 4, creating the set. Now, if you're like me and you decided to shoot everything on a green screen, which in hindsight, I probably should, you know, just done a robot arm replacement, then you're gonna have to create a 3D environment. Now you can go on TurboSquid and find really, really detailed models, but they cost a huge amount. So I just followed a tutorial that I found on YouTube for the buildings, in which I just extruded a plane and cut it up a bunch with the texture on top of it. I'm gonna link that video in the description below. And for the inside set, it's just a bunch of simple planes cut up, very, very simple, using, you know, polygon textures and just a bunch of free assets and 3D models that I found online. Leave a comment in the description below if you actually want a tutorial on set building. I'm definitely not a pro at all, but I may show you how I would go about doing it. Step 5, compositing. By now you would assume that I have bought, you know, a green screen, some lights. From all the tutorials I've done, I have done that. I was just really lazy. There seems to be a common theme going throughout the videos. I'm just really lazy right now. So I only set up a very small green screen that covers half of my body. So what that means is that we're gonna have to do a lot of masking, a lot of roto work, and some keying. All of these things are really, really basic principles in After Effects, so I'm gonna link some videos in the description. They go into a lot of detail about those steps if you're unfamiliar with rotoscoping, keying, and masking. And that's all I did to, you know, kind of isolate my character so I can place them in our 3D environment. In order to get the set into After Effects, I just rendered out a simple still image of the set in the background and just align the camera as best I could. And that's, you know, that's how I kind of got away with not putting in a lot of effort for that shot. Now for the major CGI background, that's just you know, I googled cyberpunk fancy background and that's what came up, and I just used that in the background. When you put rain and you put some blur in front of it, it's really hard to notice that it's a still image. And when you also put some moving assets like a car or something like that going in front of the camera, it helps kind of tie it all together, as well as the sound. And the last step is to color grade and color correct. I just chucked on a bunch of Lumetri colors on each layer and just went through trying to match up the blacks as best I could, match up the whites, and match up the saturation as best I could before I applied a lot on top of it. And that was basically the workflow that I used for a lot of these projects, and that's the workflow I used for this project in particular. And voila, we now have a robot arm on a person in a 3D environment. Yeah. It's also really important to mention, I hope this is obvious, you don't have to actually create the 3D environment. You can just cut it off at the motion tracking and the object tracking, and that will work just fine. So guys, thanks for watching and making it to the end of this video. I hope you guys kind of liked it. And again, I'm sorry that the video took so long to come out. I was working on it for a long time. I just didn't get around to finally finishing it now. And yeah, in the description, I have linked a mystery video that goes into Cinema 4D, After Effects, Octane, how all those things mix together. It's a great video. I'd recommend you guys go watch it. And yeah, that's it. Stay safe, guys, and peace out. Peace.